Hello, everyone. Today, we're stepping back into the wilderness of Daniel Boone to uncover what happened after the series ended. Every face you once knew is now gone. And some of their final years were far more unexpected than anything the show ever revealed. Buckle up, because you won't believe how dark their real lives became. Fess Parker as Daniel Boone. Fess Parker was born on August 16, 1924, in Fort Worth, Texas. At 40 years old, he played Daniel Boone, the fearless American frontiersman, in Daniel Boone, 1964. His portrayal not only led the series for 165 episodes, but defined the spirit of American expansion for an entire television generation. At the height of that fame, he made a choice that few leading men dared to make. In 1960, Parker married Marcella Bell Reinhardt, and as his earlier role in Disney's Davy Crockett had already made him a household name, the pressure on their marriage was immense. He also co-produced and directed key episodes in Daniel Boone. That was why networks continued offering him new projects, including the title role in McCloud. He turned it down. In 1974, when the Fess Parker show failed to secure a network order, he stunned Hollywood by retiring at just 49. He chose permanence over prestige, family over fame, and that decision changed everything. That second act proved even more strategic than his first. Parker invested in California real estate and expanded Fess Parker Winery and Vineyard into one of the region's most recognized estates. What began as a post-Hollywood transition evolved into a powerful business portfolio, quietly multiplying his wealth far beyond television earnings. By the late 2000s, he was no longer simply remembered as Daniel Boone. He was a respected entrepreneur. Fess Parker died of natural causes on March 18, 2010, at his home in Santa Ynez, California, at the age of 85. He was buried at Santa Barbara Cemetery under a simple headstone engraved with a coonskin cap, the symbol that once ignited a nationwide craze. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at approximately $100 million, built largely from land and wine rather than scripts and studio contracts. The man who portrayed America's past secured his own future with remarkable precision. Patricia Blair as Rebecca Boone. Patricia Blair was born on January 15, 1933, in Fort Worth, Texas. At 31 years old, she played Rebecca Boone, the steadfast wife of Daniel Boone, in Daniel Boone, 1964. Her performance gave emotional weight to the series and positioned her as one of television's most recognizable frontier women. While audiences saw stability on screen, her personal life carried a turning point few noticed. On February 14, 1965, at the peak of her visibility, she married real estate developer Martin Stanley Colbert in Los Angeles. For nearly 30 years, the marriage appeared steady, unfolding alongside her work on Daniel Boone and earlier recognition from The Rifleman. But as the series ended in 1970 and acting roles became less frequent, despite appearances in projects like The Electric Horseman, 1979, momentum shifted. In 1993, the marriage ended in divorce. The separation came after decades together and coincided with a fading Hollywood presence, leaving her to rebuild her identity outside the spotlight she once commanded. Then the battle became physical. Blair was diagnosed with breast cancer and endured prolonged treatment, surgeries, and exhausting therapies. The illness slowly limited her public life, reducing appearances and forcing her into privacy during her most vulnerable years. She lived in North Wildwood, New Jersey, working behind the scenes, producing trade shows, and stepping away from entertainment entirely. Patricia Blair died on September 9, 2013, at the age of 80 from breast cancer. At the time of her passing, her net worth was estimated between $2 and $3 million, accumulated through decades of steady television work and investments. The actress remembered not for scandal, but for quiet strength that lasted beyond the screen. Dal McKennon as Cincinnatus. Dal McKennon was born on July 19, 1919, in La Grande, Oregon. At 45 years old, he played Cincinnatus, the friendly merchant of Boonesboro, in Daniel Boone, appearing in 82 episodes beginning in 1964. His character became the steady comic relief in a series otherwise built on frontier conflict. While viewers saw him as the town's dependable presence, his real life had already been anchored for decades. On December 6, 1942, he married Betty Warner at age 23. That marriage lasted 66 years until his death in 2009. During those same decades, he raised 8 children while working continuously in television and animation. In the 1950s, he hosted Space Funnies in Los Angeles, one of the first locally produced children's shows to air The Little Rascals. By the 1960s, he was simultaneously voicing Gumby, Buzz Buzzard in Woody Woodpecker, and later Archie Andrews for Filmation. Even during his final decade, his earlier contracts kept his voice alive in public spaces. He remained the announcer voice for Disney's Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and appeared in recorded roles at Epcot's American Adventure. His narration on Disneyland Records albums from 1957 through the early 1970s, including The Jungle Book and Mary Poppins, continued to circulate. With an estimated net worth of about $5 million at the time of his death, built steadily over 50 years of voice work, he had created financial stability without ever being a marquee star. In his late 80s, respiratory complications began to limit his mobility. Medical records confirmed respiratory failure along with age-related decline. As breathing became more difficult, public activity stopped. Dal McKennon died on July 14, 2009, in Raymond, Washington, 5 days before his 90th birthday, at age 89. He was survived by his wife Betty, 8 children, 21 grandchildren, and 20 great-grandchildren. His burial marked the end of a career that ran quietly but continuously from early television into modern theme parks. Ed Ames as Mingo. Ed Ames was born on July 9, 1927, in Malden, Massachusetts. At 37 years old, he played Mingo, the educated Cherokee ally, in Daniel Boone. His portrayal gave the series a rare Native American character written with education, restraint, and authority. In 1947, at age 20, he married Sarah Cachiro. They had 3 children, Sonia, Ronald, and Linda, Marcela. After 26 years of marriage, the couple divorced on October 5, 1973, in Santa Monica. That separation came during a period of professional transition. The Ames brothers, the vocal quartet he formed with his siblings, had already disbanded in the early 1960s after major 1950s hits such as Ragmop and Sentimental Me. He then pursued solo work, reaching number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1967 with My Cup Runneth Over, which also hit number 1 on the adult contemporary chart. In 1998, he remarried Jean Arnold Saviano and remained with her until his death. Despite his health decline, his catalog remained active. His recordings, including Who Will Answer, 1968, continued to generate royalties through radio rotation and reissues. He had also owned a minority stake in the Phoenix Suns basketball team from 1968 to 1987, adding investment income beyond entertainment. His estimated net worth at the time of his death was approximately $3 million, built through music contracts, television salaries, and long-term investments. In his later years, Ames developed Alzheimer's disease. The diagnosis gradually reduced his public presence. Interviews stopped, performances ceased, and he required full-time care at his Beverly Hills home. The progression of the illness was documented as the cause leading to his death. Ed Ames died on May 21, 2023, at age 95, in Beverly Hills, California, due to complications from Alzheimer's disease. He was buried at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park. His life stretched from immigrant poverty in Boston to national music charts and network television, with measurable milestones marking each phase. Albert Salmi as Yadkin. Albert Salmi was born on March 11, 1927, in Brooklyn, New York. At 37 years old, he played Yadkin, Daniel Boone's loyal frontier companion, in Daniel Boone, 1964. His performance reinforced the show's rugged realism, reflecting the intensity he had already displayed on Broadway. His private life, however, unfolded with far more turbulence than his on-screen loyalty suggested. In 1956, he married actress Peggy Ann Garner after meeting her during the touring production of Bus Stop. They had one daughter, Catherine Ann Cass Salmi, born in 1957, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1963. The following year, he married Roberta Pollock Taper, and they later had two daughters. By February 1990, after 26 years together, Roberta filed for divorce in Spokane, Washington, citing alcohol abuse, physical violence, and repeated threats. Court records show she also sought a restraining order. Salmi publicly denied the accusations, attributing the separation to emotional differences. The tragedy sharply contrasted with a career built on discipline and acclaim. Salmi had earned critical praise for originating the role of Bo Decker in Bus Stop on Broadway in 1955. He appeared in more than 150 film and television productions, including The Twilight Zone, Gunsmoke, earning a Western Heritage Award in 1967, Petrocelli, 1974 to 1976, Caddyshack, 1980, and Dragonslayer, 1981. Alcohol dependency marked his later years. Friends and court filings referenced heavy drinking, and his move from Los Angeles to Spokane in 1983 signaled a partial retreat from Hollywood. Tension escalated after the separation. On April 23, 1990, Salmi shot Roberta in the kitchen of their Spokane home and then shot himself upstairs. Police reports classified the deaths as a murder-suicide. He was 63 years old. Albert Salmi was cremated after a funeral service on April 26, 1990, and his remains were placed in a niche at Greenwood Memorial Terrace in Spokane. His marker reads, "Our beloved father." His legacy remains complicated. A respected character actor with a powerful stage background whose life ended in violence that overshadowed decades of work. Jimmy Dean as Josh Clements. Jimmy Dean was born on August 10, 1928, in Seth Ward, Texas. At 39 years old, he played Josh Clements in Daniel Boone, appearing in 11 episodes between 1967 and 1970. His role added humor and musical charisma to the frontier setting, building on his already established public fame. His personal life shifted dramatically over time. Dean married Mary Sue Whittower on July 11, 1950, and they had 3 children, Gary, Connie, and Robert. The marriage lasted 40 years but ended in divorce on October 30, 1990, after his relationship with country singer Donna Meade became public. On October 27, 1991, he married Donna Meade, who remained with him until his death. The transition from a long first marriage to a second highly public one unfolded while he was balancing television fame and a growing business empire. In the years leading up to his death, Dean was no longer just a performer. His 1961 hit, Big Bad John, had sold over 1 million copies and earned him the 1962 Grammy Award for Best Country and Western Recording. He hosted The Jimmy Dean Show, 1963 to 1966, giving early national exposure to Jim Henson's Rolf the Dog. Beyond entertainment, he founded Jimmy Dean Sausage in 1969, a brand later sold but still using his likeness and voice in advertising. By the 2000s, he had donated $1 million to Wayland Baptist University and published his autobiography, 30 Years of Sausage, 50 Years of Ham, in 2004. Dean's health appeared stable in his later years, making his death unexpected. On June 13, 2010, while dining at home in Verena, Virginia, he became unresponsive and was pronounced dead at 7:54 p.m. He was 81 years old. His widow reported no prolonged illness, and the death was considered natural causes. Jimmy Dean was entombed in a 9-foot-tall, piano-shaped mausoleum overlooking the James River on his Virginia estate. The epitaph reads, "Here lies one hell of a man," a direct reference to lyrics from Big Bad John. His estate was estimated at over $50 million at the time of his death, built largely from the sausage empire he launched in 1969. Robert Logan as Jericho Jones. Robert Logan was born on May 29, 1941, in Brooklyn, New York. At 24 years old, he played Jericho Jones, the young frontiersman, in Daniel Boone, 1965 to 1966, appearing in 11 episodes. His athletic build and easy confidence injected youthful energy into the later seasons of the series. His personal life unfolded in two distinct chapters. On May 1, 1966, he married actress Susan Henning, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1967 after 1 year, and they had one daughter, Courtney Logan. Nearly 2 decades later, on February 14, 1985, he married Alina Maria Milian. That marriage lasted until his death in 2024, and they had 2 children, including his son, Anthony Logan. The contrast between a brief early marriage and a nearly 39-year second union reflected the shift in his priorities as his career moved away from Hollywood's center. In the mid-1970s, after a lull following Daniel Boone, Logan re-emerged as the leading man in The Adventures of the Wilderness Family, 1975. A family adventure film that spawned sequels including The Further Adventures of the Wilderness Family, 1978, and Mountain Family Robinson, 1979. These films established him as a central figure in outdoor-themed family cinema, often compared to a rugged, nature-focused counterpart to television's domestic heroes. He later appeared in Across the Great Divide, 1976, The Sea Gypsies, 1978, and sporadically in projects such as Catlow, 1971, and A Night in Heaven, 1983. By the 1990s, he stepped almost entirely away from film work, living a quieter life aligned with his love of the outdoors rather than constant production schedules. Robert Logan died on May 6, 2024, in Estero, Florida, 23 days before his 83rd birthday, at age 82 from natural causes. He left behind his wife Alina and his children. His legacy rests on a distinct chapter of 1970s family cinema and his role in Daniel Boone, where his youthful presence marked a transitional moment in the series' evolution. Darby Hinton as Israel. Boone. Darby Hinton was born on August 19, 1957, in the United States. At 7 years old, he played Israel Boone, the son of Daniel Boone, in Daniel Boone, 1964, appearing across 110 episodes. His boyish presence helped the series feel like a real family story, not just a frontier legend. The part came to him in a way that still sounds unreal. His mother brought him to 20th Century Fox to audition for The Sound of Music. He stood in the wrong line, and the casting team signed him on the spot. After his own father, actor Ed Hinton, died in 1958 when Darby was only 1, the set became more than a workplace. Fess Parker grew into a steady father figure during the show's run. Years later, when the series ended, he kept working instead of fading out, taking roles in films like Goodbye, Franklin High, 1978, and Malibu Express, 1985, then stepping into daytime TV as Ian Griffith on Days of Our Lives, 1985 to 1986. His marriages also carried the kind of sharp turn fans don't expect from a TV son image. In 1983, he married Dianali Priesman, and they had 2 children, Nick and Dakota, before divorcing. Later, he married Shan Griffiths and had 2 more children, Ryder and India, expanding his family while his acting career shifted into smaller, selective projects and a more private rhythm. By the time he reached adulthood, his story wasn't about scandal or collapse. It was about durability. He has remained healthy, and that matters because he began working when most kids were still learning how to read. While many former child actors disappear, he kept showing up, carrying the show's memory instead of running from it. In more recent years, he continued acting in projects that quietly reminded audiences he never truly left, including Texas Rising, 2015, and the Hallmark film Christmas Wishes and Mistletoe Kisses, 2019. At the same time, he leaned into real estate in California and became a familiar face at fan conventions, where he speaks openly about the set, the cast, and what it meant to grow up in front of millions. In 2026, Darby Hinton is 69 years old, and he remains active, still appearing at fan events, still taking occasional roles, and still living as one of the rare child stars whose life didn't implode after the cameras stopped. Veronica Cartwright as Jemima Boone. Veronica Cartwright was born on April 20th, 1949, in Bristol, England. At 15 years old, she played Jemima Boone, Daniel Boone's daughter, in Daniel Boone, 1964, appearing in 37 episodes. Her youthful seriousness gave the Boone family an emotional center, especially in moments where the frontier felt frighteningly real. She was already working long before Boone, growing up in a performing household and moving to the United States as a child with her British parents and her younger sister, Angela Cartwright. By the early 1960s, she was landing film roles that most actors spend a lifetime chasing, including The Children's Hour, 1961, and Hitchcock's The Birds, 1963. That momentum followed her into Daniel Boone, where her early exit from the series didn't end her rise. It simply pushed her toward darker, more adult work later. Her marriages came in sharp, surprising waves. She first married Richard Gates in 1968, and the relationship ended in divorce in 1972. She married Stanley Hyman Goldstein in 1976, divorced again in 1980, then married director Richard Compton in 1982, a marriage that lasted until his death in 2007, and they had one child, Dakota Compton. The pattern reads like a life repeatedly restarting, new chapters, new names, then loss. In the years closest to now, her resume still stretches. She returned to the Alien universe by reprising Lambert for Alien, Isolation, 2014, and she continued television appearances, including a stint on General Hospital in 2019. The through line is consistency, from a teenage frontier daughter to a celebrated genre icon in Alien, 1979, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978, she never stopped reinventing the kind of fear she could portray. In 2026, Veronica Cartwright is 77 years old, still healthy, and still active in the industry. Today, her health is steady enough that she continues to work, and that continuity is part of why her career feels so astonishingly long. She has spoken to fans and appeared publicly for decades without retreating into disappearance. That matters, because so many actresses who started young were pushed out. She simply kept going. Roosevelt Grier as Gabe Cooper. Roosevelt Grier was born on July 14, 1932, in Linden, New Jersey. At 36 years old, he played Gabe Cooper, a powerful ally on the frontier, in Daniel Boone. His presence brought physical authority and cultural weight to the series. Growing up in New Jersey during the Great Depression era, Grier was raised in a working-class household. Opportunities were limited, especially for a young black boy in the 1930s and 1940s, and sport became his path forward. His imposing 1.96-meter frame earned him a place in professional football, and by the 1960s, he was a defensive star with the Los Angeles Rams, part of the legendary Fearsome Foursome. The transition from the brutality of the NFL to television acting was not accidental. It was survival through reinvention. Appearances in shows like The Man from UNCLE and The Wild Wild West prepared him for steady screen work before and after Daniel Boone. His marriages reveal a more turbulent private story. Grier married Beatrice Lewis in 1962. The marriage ended in divorce in 1970. In 1973, he married Margie Grier, divorced her in 1978, then remarried her in 1981, an unusual reconciliation that suggested unfinished love and unresolved conflict. That second union lasted until Margie's death on June 10, 2011. 2 years later, on April 30, 2013, at age 80, he married Sydney Saylor. In 1983, Grier became an ordained minister, stepping away from the spotlight that once followed his football fame and film roles such as Skyjacked, 1972, and The Thing with Two Heads, 1972. Rather than chasing diminishing acting opportunities, he redirected his energy toward ministry, prison outreach, and mentoring inner-city youth. The shift was deliberate, replacing applause with purpose. As of 2026, Roosevelt Grier is 94 years old. He remains known as a former NFL champion, actor, and minister, occasionally appearing at public events tied to football history and faith-based initiatives. The man once feared on defensive lines ultimately chose to be remembered not for force, but for guidance. Orville Sherman as Tupper. Orville Sherman was born on January 18, 1916, in Lexington, Oklahoma. At 48 years old, he played Tupper, a frontier townsman, in Daniel Boone, 1964. Though his screen time was often brief, his grounded presence added authenticity to the series' Western atmosphere. Raised in Oklahoma on land his great-grandfather had purchased in 1894, Sherman grew up close to the landscape that later defined his screen persona. He began tap dancing at 9 and left home at 19 to pursue performance, listing himself in the 1940 U.S. Census as an actor, dancer, director while boarding in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Later, he worked on stage in New York and even traveled to England to perform in Oklahoma, building a steady, if unglamorous career rooted in discipline rather than fame. His personal life unfolded in quiet fractures. He married actress Marcella Dodge on October 10, 1948, but the marriage ended in divorce in the 1960s. In 1973, he married Jean Renault, a woman 8 years his senior. That union also ended. Relatives later recalled that he was so consumed by work he did not attend his father's funeral in 1959, a decision that lingered in family memory. In 1973, the same year as his second marriage, Sherman became a minister and taught speech at the Church of Religious Science in Downey, California, adding spiritual service to decades of Western television appearances. Yet the stability he sought did not last. On October 1, 1984, he died alone in Los Angeles from prostate cancer at the age of 68. His passing was quiet, without notable public tributes or family present. Sherman's career spanned stage, wartime service, and countless television westerns, even if his name rarely appeared above the title. Nearly 6 decades have passed since Daniel Boone, 1964, first brought frontier legends into living rooms across America. Time has moved forward, and many of the faces who shaped that world are no longer with us. Their stories didn't end when the cameras stopped. They carried triumph, heartbreak, reinvention, and ultimately, farewell. Which story surprised you the most? Which cast member's journey touched you the deepest? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories behind the shows you grew up with.